When prices drop, you'd think everyone wins. Cheaper groceries, lower bills, what's not to love? But history tells a different story. Falling prices can actually freeze economies, shut down businesses, and cost people their jobs. And sometimes, you get the worst of both worlds: stagnant growth and rising prices. Today, we'll unravel two dangerous economic forces: deflation and stagflation. We'll see how they work, why they're so hard to fix, and how they can quietly stall an entire economy without a single market crash. By the end, you'll also understand why governments sometimes act fast to keep money moving, even if it means spending billions. Welcome to Unravel, Money and Economics. In this channel, we simplify the world of finance, economics, and money, so you can understand how it all works no matter your background. Let's break this down into 8 chapters. What deflation really is. The economic stall effect. Why falling prices can backfire. Deflation in history, the lost decade. Understanding stagflation. The 1970s oil crisis case study. How governments try to fight back. Why these problems still matter. Today. Chapter 1. What deflation really is. Deflation happens when prices across the entire economy fall for a sustained period of time. Not just for a few weeks, and not just in one sector. If the price of smartphones drops because a new factory made production cheaper, that's not deflation. That's a specific market change. Deflation is broader. It might affect food, housing, energy, wages, almost everything. It's also different from disinflation, which simply means inflation is slowing down but prices are still rising, just more slowly. Deflation means prices are actually going down. Why does this happen? Most often, it's tied to demand falling faster than supply. When people aren't buying, businesses compete by lowering prices to attract customers. And that's where the trouble begins. Chapter 2. The economic stall effect. At first, lower prices sound like good news. But here's the hidden danger. When people expect prices to keep falling, they start waiting. Why buy a new car today when it might be cheaper next month? Why invest in upgrading your business equipment now if costs might drop later? This hesitation leads to what economists sometimes call an economic stall, where money stops circulating. Businesses see less revenue, so they cut production or delay projects. That means fewer jobs or reduced hours for workers. Less income means people spend even less. It's a feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle that can slow the economy long before it officially enters a recession. And here's the twist. In a stall, nothing dramatic like a stock market crash might happen at first. The slowdown is quiet, gradual, but it can be just as damaging over time. Chapter 3. Why falling prices can backfire. The problem isn't just that people wait to spend. Deflation also increases the real burden of debt. If prices and wages drop but your mortgage or student loan stays the same, you're effectively paying more in real terms. That strains household budgets and leaves less money for other purchases. Wages often fall during deflation. Employers cut pay or reduce hours to manage costs. This erodes consumer confidence and spending falls further. Businesses also hold back on investments. Why build a new store or buy new machinery if profits are shrinking? And there's a psychological impact. When the economic mood turns pessimistic, people and companies alike choose safety over risk, which further slows growth. Chapter 4. Deflation in history. The lost decade. One of the clearest examples of prolonged deflation is Japan's lost decade in the 1990s. In the late 1980s, Japan's economy was booming. Stock and real estate prices skyrocketed. But the bubble burst. Asset values collapsed, banks were left with bad loans, and consumers pulled back on spending. Prices began to fall year after year. Companies reduced wages, cut hiring, and delayed investment. The government tried stimulus packages and low interest rates, but recovery was painfully slow. In fact, Japan struggled with low growth and deflationary pressures for much of the next 2 decades. The lesson? Once deflation takes hold, it can be incredibly difficult to reverse, even with aggressive policy action. Chapter 5. Understanding stagflation. If deflation is one problem, stagflation is 2 at once. Stagnant economic growth and high inflation happening together. It's rare because inflation and stagnation usually move in opposite directions. Slow growth tends to reduce price pressures. But in stagflation, prices keep rising even though the economy isn't growing, creating a no-win situation. For workers, it's a nightmare. Wages don't keep up with costs, but job opportunities are scarce. For policymakers, it's a puzzle. Tools that fight inflation can make growth worse, and tools that boost growth can make inflation worse. Chapter 6. The 1970s. Oil Crisis Case Study. The most famous example of stagflation is the 1970s oil crisis. In 1973, several oil-producing nations cut supply as part of a political dispute. Oil prices quadrupled almost overnight. Energy is a foundation for nearly every sector: transportation, manufacturing, even food production. So when energy prices spiked, production costs surged across the board. At the same time, the economy slowed. High energy costs discouraged spending and investment, while inflation stayed stubbornly high because of those same energy costs. Central banks faced an impossible choice: raise interest rates to fight inflation and risk recession, or keep rates low and let inflation spiral. The result? Years of sluggish growth, high unemployment, and persistent inflation, a perfect example of stagflation's destructive force. Chapter 7. How governments try to fight back. When deflation threatens, governments and central banks aim to keep money moving. Lowering interest rates makes borrowing cheaper, encouraging spending and investment. Quantitative easing injects money into the financial system. Fiscal stimulus, like tax cuts or infrastructure projects, puts money directly into the economy. Direct payments to households can also encourage immediate spending. With stagflation, the approach is trickier. Stimulus can fuel inflation, while tightening policy can deepen stagnation. That's why responses often focus on targeted solutions, like increasing energy supply, easing specific shortages, or investing in productivity improvements. But every option has trade-offs, and timing is critical. Act too slowly, and recovery becomes far harder. Chapter 8. Why these problems still matter. Today, some think deflation and stagflation are relics of the past, but the truth is the risk never fully goes away. After the pandemic, supply chain disruptions, energy price swings, and shifting consumer demand reminded us that unusual economic conditions can emerge suddenly. If another major shock hits, whether it's technological, geopolitical, or environmental, these forces could return. Understanding how they work means we can spot warning signs early and better understand why governments act the way they do. Because in economics, sometimes the biggest danger isn't when prices go up. It's when the entire system slows to a crawl. Deflation and stagflation aren't just textbook terms. They shape real lives, from paychecks to prices at the grocery store. Both remind us that prices aren't just numbers. They're signals that influence millions of decisions every day. When those signals go wrong, the effects can last for years, and the hardest part of fixing the economy may be getting it moving again. Have a topic you're curious about? Let us know in the comments, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. As we continue to unravel the world of money and economics, one concept at a time.